Hello, everybody. It is Native Dave. I just took a drink of coffee and I was trying to swallow while I said that. I hope y'all are doing pretty good out there so far. I'm doing pretty good myself. I figured I better get an episode out there before I get busy. There's a program that I'm going to be starting here pretty soon, and so time is of an essence, guys. Today I want to cover an article that I was reading by a Robert Walser, a professor in the Department of Music at Case Western Reserve University. He wrote an article on heavy metal. Heavy metal is the genre of rock music that includes a group of related styles that are intense, virtuosic, and powerful. Driven by the aggressive sounds of the distorted electric guitar, heavy metal is arguably the most commercially successful genre of rock music. Heavy metal appeared in the lyrics of Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild in 1968, and by the early 1970s, rock critics were using it to refer to a specific style of music. In the mid-1960s, British bands such as Cream, the Yardbirds, and the Jeff Beck Group, along with Jimi Hendrix, are generally credited with developing the heavier drums, bass, and distorted guitar sounds that differentiated heavy metal from other blues-based rock. The new sound was codified in the 1970s by Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath. Which featured heavy riffs, distorted power chords, mystical lyrics, guitar and drum solos, and vocal styles that ranged from the wails of Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant to the whines of Sabbath's Ozzy Osbourne. By developing increasingly elaborate stage shows and touring incessantly throughout the 1970s to make up for their lack of radio airplay, bands such as Kiss, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Judas Priest, and Alice Cooper established international fan base. Heavy metal's popularity slumped during the disco years at the end of the 1970s, but it became more successful than ever in the 1980s. Hey, that's my era. As Def Leppard, Iron Maiden, and Saxon headed the new wave of British metal, that along with the impact of Eddie Van Halen's astonishing guitar virtuosity, revived the genre. A wave of glam metal featuring gender-bending bands such as Motley Crue and Rat emanated from Los Angeles beginning about 1983. Bands like Poison, Guns N' Roses, and hundreds of other bands then moved to Los Angeles in hopes of getting a record deal. But heavy metal had become a worldwide phenomenon in both fandom and production with the success of Germany's Scorpions and other bands from Japan and Scandinavia. The most important musical influence of the decade was the adaptation of chord progressions, figuration, and ideals of virtuosity from Baroque models. Like Van Halen, guitarists such as Ritchie Blackmore of Deep Purple, Randy Rhoads of Ozzy Osbourne, and Yngwie Malmsteen demonstrated new levels of styles of rock guitar technique, exploding popular stereotypes of heavy metal as monolithic and musically simple. Heavy metal fragmented into subgenres such as light metal. I never heard of light metal. Death metal and Christian metal in the 1980s. A smaller underground scene of harder styles developed in opposition to the more pop-oriented metal of Bon Jovi, Whitesnake, and the glam bands. These underground, harder styles that they're talking about were Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer, who pioneered thrash metal, distinguished by its fast tempos, harsh vocals, and guitar timbres, aggressiveness, and critical or sarcastic lyrics. The more broadly popular styles of heavy metal virtually took over the mainstream of popular music in the late 1980s. By the coherence of the genre collapsed. But the coherence of the genre collapsed around the turn of the decade. Bands such as Guns N' Roses and Nirvana pulled fans in different directions, and many fans also defected to rap music. Through the 1990s, many stars of previous decades, such as Van Halen, Metallica, and Ozzy, experienced continued success alongside newer groups such as Soundgarden. But the name heavy metal was even then less often used to market these groups or to define their fan community. Heavy metal musicians and fans came under severe criticism in the 1980s. Political and academic groups sprang up to blame the genre and its fans for causing everything from crime and violence to despondency and suicide. But defenders of the music pointed out that there was no evidence that heavy metal's exploration of madness and horror caused rather than articulated these social ills. The genre, lyrics, and imagery have long addressed a wide range of topics, and its music has always been more varied and virtuosic than critics like to admit. I remember Dee Snider spoke out a lot in those times against the PMRC. There were others who spoke out. If you watch Twisted Sister's documentary, you'll definitely see, a lot of these attacks on and during those times. And I want to start at the bottom on this last paragraph. Heavy metal musicians and fans came under severe criticism in the 1980s. Political and academic groups sprang up to blame the genre and its fans for causing everything from crime and violence to despondency and suicide. I remember Ozzy's Suicide Solution and the guy that had committed suicide while listening to the song was a big thing. And I do remember it hitting the news airwaves, blaming metal music, for those acts. a lot of them are senseless acts. And I also remember in the 80s when I was a teenager, this was my era of discovering metal music, where in the house that I grew up in, I heard things like the Beatles, Elvis, 50s music, 60s, and some 70s, disco. That's kind of the kind of stuff I grew up hearing in the house that I grew up in. Until my older brother started getting these tapes and stuff, and I would listen to what he was listening to at the time. Anyways, let me just kind of come back here. I remember as a teenager hearing about these satanic worships, or these things that were going on out there, these crimes and violence and suicide, and all supposedly heavy metal related. I remember on our res, the TORS, I remember talk about satanic worship. I don't know who these groups were back then, as I was fairly younger, again, a teenager. But the thing I remember hearing was these people that were supposedly sacrificing cats and then hanging the dead cats on clotheslines. And it was a thing to kind of just kind of like, wow, I mean, that was back then. Everything seemed so safe. You can go anywhere. You don't have to worry about the things we worry about today. And everything was innocent, supposedly. Maybe anyways. So that was happening. And I remember one time I was watching TV in the evening, and I saw this news. The news comes on at 10 o'clock at night, and I was watching a show, and I remember this news thing came on, and they tell you the topics they're gonna cover at 10 o'clock, and I saw they said that they were talking about heavy metal anyways, and they showed a couple of clips, and I remember seeing Slayer and Venom just from the books that I used to collect, and I got all excited, like, wow, I'm gonna stay up till 10 and I'm gonna watch the news. I stayed up till 10, and sure enough, I sat through the news, and they finally got to where they were gonna talk about the satanic occults out there, and how they were using heavy metal as an influence, supposedly. And it was funny because I didn't really care about what they were addressing. I was just more eager to see, these bands that I liked. And they show, like, probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 second clips. I remember seeing Slayer and Venom, and I was just all amazed, like, wow, And what was I trying to tie this into? Um, because back then, we didn't really have the conveniences of today. Today, you can just go to YouTube and type in Venom, Slayer, or whatever, and watch a video. So easy. And as far as even like listening to the new stuff, back then, we literally had to catch a glimpse where we could. Maybe somebody bought the new album, and you went over and kind of had a listening session with your friend or whatever, borrowed a tape, a record, whatever. And so, it was however you could get your hands on things back then. And so, yeah, that's what I remember of that era. And it's a lot of the disorder, the craziness, the aggressiveness, I guess you can say, of the imagery or the sound and so on, was something that we related to. I mean, I don't. I definitely I'm not a latchkey, kid. Um, uh, you know, as I am a Gen Xer, but I related to this stuff only because I grew up in a sense, not having, the full guidance, of parental guidance. And so I guess you can say, in my own world, I used it to rebel, to feel good, and that wasn't like a negative thing. I really did like the music, it spoke to me. I related to it. It was the outlet that I needed. So that was those times. Definitely looking back, I know that I know many of you like me could name other bands that played a major influence of those times, whether British bands or bands that in the states that you know influenced the music. And the article only went up to the 90s, which is ironic because that's as far as I can go with music today. I can't get into anything newer that is out there. I mean, they're cool and all, you know what I mean? They got their grooves and their styles, but I don't know. I'm kind of in this thrash era or old school death, era or what. I know there's gonna be some begs to differ on this, but I my cousin got me into Venom, and we were, I think, one of my first real favorite records was black metal, and then my second was the Seven Gates of Hell, and we were living with my uncle and his mom, my aunt, and they were church going people. Very, how do you say it? Faithful Christians. And here we were in our little room, listening to stuff like Venom and, turning the record backwards to try to hear messages and things like that. We were, it was a pretty cool time. I mean, we were definitely, you know, growing with the music. And, it got to where we started to go to concerts, and it wasn't a weekly thing. It was when and where we could, because I was young, and so was he, and so today, when I reflect back on all that, from what I grew up listening to in the house, like I said, the Beatles, Elvis, 50s, 60s, 70s music, disco, whatever. um I still can find a place, where I can be okay with that, and that's cool. I mean, to each his own, right? Because I'm pretty sure you can kind of go back to a certain genre and listen to it, and it's okay. That's the cool thing about knowing yourself, you know, is you don't always have to fit in to boxes and spaces and things like that, you know. Although there are people that will criticize you for, you know, listening to certain things and so on. I definitely see that a lot. But I can go back a ways and listen to these earlier genres of different styles of music, and it could kind of give me an aesthetic feeling, and I just enjoy that time. So this was an interesting article. Just a little history on heavy metal and how that became, you know, uh, worldwide phenomenon. Like I said earlier, one of the, what did it say? One of the most commercially successful genres of rock music is heavy metal. So raise your horns to the metal gods, as Rob Halford would say, and that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Just some things that I wanted to reflect on where I'm at today with it, and being okay with it. I think the last real new metal that I actually got into in the '90s was, Slipknot, Mudvayne, and Disturbed. Preferably their first albums, each band. I saw them at what used to be Desert Sky Pavilion, all three of them, and was so amazed, at the intensity of what they were doing, and I probably wouldn't be able to go past each of their first albums, which is just me. You know what I mean? And everybody's different. But definitely go and listen to some old Sodom, some Forbidden. I saw that they revived the band without Russ, which is cool, And that's another thing too, and it's probably a whole nother topic. I'm not even gonna touch on it, but Forbidden definitely was one of my Bay Area favorites, along with like Testament and Death Angel, but these came later, like Forbidden and Violence and things like that. Oh, I saw a cool Violence video somewhere in Europe, and that was pretty cool. So those are kind of things that I like to go back to. Just these were the things that were doing it for me, and which kind of, I'll go ahead and just end with this, which brings me to to the face paint. I grew up listening to Kiss, thanks to my brother who had Rock and Roll Over and Kiss Alive 2, and I was just so fascinated, And then I finally got to see some videos, and what fascinated more was the theatrics, the explosions, the everything. And it's so weird, you always like choose the more aggressive one because as as the characters went back then, with the cat, the Star Child, Space Ace, and the demon, they all had their characters. So the thing that turned me on the most was the blood, spitting of blood, and the spitting of fire. And so Gene was like, really, although Gene's another character, but although he was his character really was something that drew me in. And I always admired that, like, wow, as a kid, I want to be that, I want to do that. And then attempting to try to be that. You play your air guitar, get your grandma's powder and put powder on your face, and look in the mirror, and you're sticking your tongue out. And she got mad at me one time because she couldn't find her powder, and she busted me putting powder on my face while I was looking in the mirror and sticking my tongue out. She was an elderly woman, and she definitely didn't understand what I was doing. She just, I don't know what she thought, but yeah. Anyways, fast forward to maybe the '90s. when I got into black metal and started listening to different black metal bands, um, and saw, the obscureness, the aggressiveness. It was like a whole new energy of feeling again. Way back when I was a teenager. Listening to Megadeth's Peace Cells. Felt like I was rebelling against society and the world. And it did something for me. uh, and then, like I said, when I discovered for myself black metal, it was just a whole deeper, you know, underground type kind of feeling, like, wow, what the hell is this? And then finding my favorites earlier on: Burzum, Immortal, Satyricon, and so forth. Dark Throne, and um, I almost was gonna say Hell Throne. One of my favorite local bands, Hell Throne. I almost was gonna say Hell Throne. Anyways, Dark Throne, and then Mayhem. Those are the ones that I started out with, and I was just amazed, like, dang, this is a trip. But starting to what I like to do, as far as like music, is I'm more music oriented, so I'm gonna be listening to the guitars, the drum beats, the patterns, and things like that, which kind of blocks out the singing for me, and I guess it's just because, as a musician myself, I always focus on those things, like, that sounds really cool. I want to play that style, so I'm really listening. So it kind of like just blocks out everything else. But yeah, so I think my alter ego, other than Native Dave, is Abbath, the mighty Abbath, um, and Gene Simmons, first and foremost. And when I started out with Guardians, I needed a disguise. I was working in a outpatient substance abuse outpatient program, behavioral / mental health program, and I had people under me, as far as people that I was seeing, and it was a conflict of interest at the time for me to have those two dual relationships, as they say, and it's happened. I've seen people that I know, and even to today, I'm not in the field no more. As of last year, I'm now a full-time student, college student, but I still see some people in the field that will come up to me and say, hey, how are you doing? Or, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. And that's cool. It's cool, but at the beginning, I needed some type of disguise, and like I said, it was a conflict of interest, ethically, due to a role that I was playing in a job that I had. And so I started out with a mask. I went and bought a mask at the mall. It was a cool mask, but it was very hot in there. It literally covered my whole face, and summertime, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe, and so I experimented with face paint, and it it worked. It worked, and I'm still experimenting, only because I'm trying to figure how to keep it on, and as opposed to my hair flapping and wiping it off, or my sweat, wiping it off. whatever though, it's what it is. And so anyways, I wish y'all a good week, a good weekend. Things that I've missed along the way. I wanted to do this right after my birthday last in May. What are we in June? Yeah, last month. But then I was busy. What did I miss along the way? I think the two that I just want to go ahead and wish for everybody is a belated Happy Mother's Day, and also belated Happy Father's Day. Everybody that's in the scene, you all are pretty awesome people. I've never met somebody in the scene that I couldn't get along with. Everybody is just really cool, and that's something that I appreciate about the scene is basically gratitude, you know. And we all have our own lives, you see it on Facebook, everybody's doing their own thing, whether we're working, doing our side jobs, going to school, whatever, being a parent, a partner, or even just doing us, doing our best to take care of ourselves. That's everything is good for everybody. And we do struggle. Times come up where, they get hard and we go through things, and, we tend to suffer a little. But take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves, and thank you. If you gotten this far as listening to the podcast, thank you. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you.